Holistic by Shiana.
Hi, it's Shiana. Welcome to Who You Calling Holistic. I can't even apologize for the break. I didn't have shit to say, honestly. So that's that on that. But before we get into all of the convo of today, I'm recording today at GOT Sound Studio. Shout out to Neek. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share my shit. I appreciate it. And I was just, it's Gemini season, so of course I have all the things to say now. But I was sitting there like, what am I supposed to talk about? I had no inspiration. If you are on my email list, which if you're not already, go ahead and add that to your to-do list. But I haven't even been emailing like I was doing in the past. I just had no inspo. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just sit here and wait until something comes along and just hermit for a while like I do, because that's what I have to have a balance of anyway, right? So I hermited, and then I was like, I'll get some inspiration at some point. And honestly, if I was really trying to get some inspiration, I could have, but it just felt like it was time to just potato and hermit. And there was even a moment that I was just like, when am I going to come out of this to talk about things? And I was like, not yet. And then every time I was like, well, let me do it this way. Let me schedule this person. Let me do this over here. It was like, no. And when I have those moments, I have these moments of friction, when I have those back to back to back, I just say, you know what? Fuck it. Let me hermit. Let me go back to square one. Let me lay low, because there's a reason I'm getting all this friction, and let me wait until things have more ease again so I can move how I need to move. So I'm back. But yeah, I have learned to navigate that. Again, I got to figure out how to navigate that with work like this, because I know that I have even bursts of creative expression, creative things. And it's I want to create all the things. I want to share all the things for months at a time, for weeks at a time, for days at a time. And then there's just moments recently that I was just I ain't got it. I'm tapped out. I don't have anything to share. I don't have anything to say. And that's saying a lot, right? Because it's me. But if I don't have anything to say, I'm not going to say it. So
that sounds like some shit Shiana says.
Anyway, welcome back. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Let's get caught up on some things. So if you're watching me on YouTube, yes, new hair. If you have not already seen that, it's new, but it's not new because I've done it before. I cut my hair, had nothing to do with anything that was going on over the time that I had no inspiration, because if anything, hopefully this gave me some more inspiration to be more visible. And I had planned to cut my hair months ago because honestly, right after, it was February 2022, where I told people, you know what, I'm going to grow my hair back out and see what that looks like. I'll grow it back out to the length it was and revisit it, because I really, really enjoyed short hair. I really enjoyed the low maintenance. I really enjoyed not having to put a shit ton of product in it. And I mean, there's oodles and oodles of other benefits that I enjoyed thoroughly the whole time. And then I was like, I'll give it a chance. I'll grow it back out. I'll see what that's like. And as my hair kept growing, it was the strangest feeling, because, I'm not necessarily attached to a lot of things, right? But my hair, I'm a Leo moon. So my mane is a big part of my expression and a big part of my personality, really. And as my hair got longer, and as I was doing things with it that I used to do before anyway, it didn't feel like it belonged to me. It was the weirdest thing. I don't even know how else to describe it, but I felt like an imposter with long hair. It was weird because I grew up with long hair all my life, right? And then I just cut it in 2019. And after it grew back out, I was just like, ugh, I don't like this. And then there was a time that I had straightened it. And I know there's a couple people listening that whenever I straightened it, they were here because we had a party we had a litmus party around Christmas time. And my hair was straight for that. And I remember some of my friends were like, the ones that hadn't seen it straight before, because I used to straighten it from time to time before, and I hadn't straightened it before, or I hadn't straightened it again since I had grown it back out. So I probably hadn't had straight hair since sometime early 2019 or 2018, a long time ago, right? And then when I straightened it, a lot of the people that were like at the party and some of my friends were like, don't do that again. Like, who is this? And again, I felt like an imposter. I was just like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the straight hair. I'm not feeling the long hair. Please get rid of it. I don't need it. I don't want it. So here we are. And I feel like myself again. I was actually going through several like astrology placements, transit things that I was looking into a few months ago. And one of the things that I saw was some of the things transiting, some of the things coming up for me over the last, I guess, month and a half were about visibility. And I just remember thinking like how funny it was that I was aligning the haircut around that time, because I've said before, like whenever I have long hair, I felt like it overshadowed my face. I felt like it took away from me. So, and I know it's a part of me. I get it, but it felt like too much. It felt like a distraction. So that was one of the reasons like I lined it up with that. And it was interesting cutting it again this second time around versus the first, because the first time, even this time I was very sure, like, please get rid of it. I don't want it anymore. But the first time I was very, very sure about it. And, right after it happened, there wasn't like regrets. There wasn't regrets with the second time either, but it was different again, right? And the second time around, I had kind of told, a handful of people that I was entertaining it or that I was doing it. And of course, because I shared that with a couple people, and this is why I don't tell y'all things until after the fact, because I don't like y'all sharing your opinions on the shit that I don't care about knowing your opinions on when I'm about to do it anyway, right? So this is why I like to share my moves after I make them a lot of times. And it's interesting in like marketing purposes and stuff for what I do. A lot of the times, all the things are like, share your updates, give people some insight on how you're moving, what you're up to today and stuff. And I get it to a certain extent, but then I don't need y'all. Not y'all, because y'all support what I do, but I don't need people that don't want me to do the things I'm doing to share it, because it's not going to make a difference, honestly. In the long run, it's not going to make a difference. However, personally speaking, it might affect me a little bit, right? So it's just best that I don't share until after I do it. But the second time around when I was cutting it was interesting, because I remember looking at the calendar when I was scheduling it. I was scheduling it around a moon situation. And I remember at first it was scheduled like around a Capricorn moon. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. Look, lined up with me, the Capricorn. And we had to reschedule something for something, because we were going to cut the hair and do some color too. So color is still scheduled, because that's a whole nother thing. This is just half the transformation. And she wasn't going to have time to do the rest of the color and cut, because the cut itself took like 2 hours. So we were scheduling those things. And I remember I had it was a Capricorn moon scheduled. And then I think I had to reschedule it for something, like, I don't remember, something came up or whatever. So I had to reschedule it. And when I rescheduled it, I was like, oh, look, it's rescheduled for a Leo moon. Look at that. How fitting. But then I started questioning things and doubting things. And then I was like, okay, well, let me just look into some stuff real quick, right? Because there's certain times that are more supportive of getting your hair cut aligned with the moons. When we're talking waning, waxing, those things, there's certain times that are more fitting for hair removal and hair cuts and hair transformations. So I'm like looking into this stuff. Again, this is like probably the day before my big haircut at this point, right? And I was like, well, let me just triple check. Let me just make sure that everything's okay and supportive of this transformation at this time. And it was fine. Like moon lined up, whatever it was fine too. But then the Googles said something about yes to moon phases and haircuts. However, you should always avoid haircuts. And they gave like specific dates. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't factor that into the equation. Like, is this one of the dates on here that I have my haircut? And it wasn't. So then I was like, okay, well, I don't have that reason either. And I was like, all right, so here I am trying to find reasons just in case I'm not making the right decision, but I am. So I have no regrets. I love me with short hair. And I feel like there is this outdated belief. There we go. We'll say that. I feel like there's this outdated belief that long hair equals feminine. And I am here to let you know that that's a lie. Okay? I'm feminine as fuck, and short hair suits me. And if anybody can do both, it's going to be me. So, hi. Anyway, what else is there to share? All right, what's been going on? Okay, so the Aurora thing happened. That happened a couple weeks ago. And I laughed because I just saw something that I had shared on my story a year ago that said we were going to be seeing more auroras over the next few years. So I was a little disappointed. Like, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but we drove out to Newberry, which is like a 40-minute drive, nothing crazy, because we saw a beautiful picture on somebody else's page that was in Newberry. And we went to Newberry to try and get the same thing, and we didn't. So I got like a little glimpse of some purple, pinkish, greenish stuff, but it wasn't what I saw on Instagram from other people. So I was like, guess I'll have to do a redo at some point. So the fact that I saw we were going to be getting more auroras over the next few years, I was like, all right, cool. That'll just be another road trip, one late night, because that's fine. But around that time, I don't know about you, and hear me out, because this is before I get into the conspiraSHE theory part of this, but hear me out on this part. But around that time, I had the worst headaches. I had the worst headaches that were like, it was just pressure. It almost felt sinusy. It was like right in the middle of my forehead, and which is what I would get if I were to have like a sinus headache or a sinus infection. And I was like, what is this? What is this head pain? And it reminded me of, my necklace is all twisted. It reminded me of that time back in 2020 when, y'all remember how bad the pollen was? Like, I know South Carolina gets pretty bad pollen, but the pollen in 2020 was like next level, right? And I remember us joking that they were, probably putting COVID in the pollen then because of the way the pollen was affecting all of us. And it was like, is it the pollen? Is it allergy season? Is it COVID? Is it the flu? Is it a cold? Like, who the fuck knows? And those were the vibes I had with the headache that I got around the Aurora. And so much to the point, so the headache was, it was tolerable. It was a nuisance because it was very much like, it's just here. There's nothing I can do that gets rid of it. I was hydrating. It didn't feel like I could drink enough water. Like I had said that to other people, like, are you hydrating? Are you able to hydrate enough? And a lot of people said the same thing. Like, no, like I've been drinking like gallons and I don't have to pee. So conspiracy theory me is like, what was going on? Because then there was TikToks and videos about, yes, they're saying it's the Aurora thing, but did you also know that they were running these tests? So whatever. Not getting into all of that today. However, I had extreme fatigue on like Mother's Day too. So I was like, you know what? Just in case, I just need to be home and rest, because it felt like when I woke up that day, because Mother's Day was like 2 days after the Aurora thing. And it felt like I had several edibles when I got up. And like, I like an edible from time to time, but when I'm in charge of it, when I know the dosage and when it's planned, I don't just, edibles hit me different than regular smoking. And a lot of people like edibles because they can be productive or they can get things done in a manner that they enjoy, whatever the case. That is not the case for me. I have edibles and I sleep. And if I have edibles late enough or too much of an edible, then I have that weed hangover that like people pretend that weed doesn't cause hangovers, but an edible will give you a weed hangover. And I don't want to wake up like that. And the only other time I remember feeling that way when I woke up extremely, extremely high the next day was a few years ago. We went to Cirque du Soleil. Great time, obviously. Amazing time, high, obviously. But I have a dosage scale for myself personally. Everybody knows their limits, right? Some people, it's just 5 to 10 milligrams of THC, and that's their jam. Mine, my like comfy spot, if I'm doing an edible, is usually about 20 milligrams. So this particular day, I was like, you know what? These gummies are usually about 40 milligrams. I'm going to take a gummy and a half. So 60 milligrams of THC. And again, Cirque du Soleil was an enjoyable, lovely experience. Great times. But Cirque du Soleil was like 7, 8 o'clock that night. And I woke up the next day very high, very groggy, very fatigued. And I was like, never fucking again. So 20 milligrams is still my sweet spot. Unless I am in extreme pain, which is unlikely and very uncommon, I don't need more than that to mellow out. Like, I'm already naturally mellow. I don't need help in that department. I need help in the waking up and doing things and moving faster department sometimes, because we're not always meant to be doing all the time, which we'll get into in a little bit, because this is what inspired me to finally have some shit to say again. But yeah, so let me know if you also had the things going on around then, because I remember when it was happening to me, I was like, let me check social media. Let me check my woo-woo people social media, because I wonder if there is some like energy update that I need to look at. And there was, and it was like, energy update. You may be experiencing ascension symptoms, flu-like, fatigue, headaches, nausea. And I was like, all right, see, there we go. Here it is. Thank you for confirming, because I just thought I was going crazy and or delusional again. But now I have something backing up my beliefs. And I appreciate that. Whether or not they're delusional or not, I appreciate when I find something to support it. So what else has happened? So, okay, some more updates. I recently returned back to myofascial release, and I've spoken of it before, maybe in one of my Self-Care September episodes, because it's been forever, but I've referenced it more than once. And matter of fact, I just need to have her come on here and talk at some point. But myofascial release is a massage technique, modality, specialty, however you want to label it, that focuses on addressing the trauma in the tissues. So as you recall, I had that car accident where I was rear-ended in November, and my ankle was fucked up a little bit, but enough of a little bit to fuck up some other things in my structure. And so it's like a domino effect when you get treatment for that. And it does make me wonder, like, thank goodness I'm self-aware enough and know enough about my body mechanics that I can feel when just, there's like a little something off structurally. Is that a word? Structure? Yeah, sure. And so it was fucking me up, because it was like my leg's not right, my arm or my foot's not right, my ankle's not right, my hip's not right. Like everything just felt off balance, not even off balance. It felt shifted a little bit, and it wasn't right. And those tiny little things for me, because I'm so aware of it, were just a pain in the ass. And then it just made me wonder, like, how many people are out there? Because again, when I was rear-ended, thank God, it was just like it was it wasn't anything crazy. We were rear-ended at a standstill on 26, wherever you're listening from. We have this malfunction junction in Columbia, South Carolina, and that's where we were. And there are often accidents there, but if you do live here, you know the malfunction junction is always a clusterfuck, despite what they're trying to do. And there's a lot of stop and go traffic there at many different times of the day. And again, because I don't know what time people work anymore and what time they are going in and out of town, because this was around Thanksgiving anyway. So this was like 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon when it happened. And we were just bumped enough, like the whole hood on the other car was like shriveled up, but it's because we were in an SUV, so it went under the SUV. But even when I was getting treatment from the chiropractor, he even said it only takes 5 miles an hour of impact to affect your body, to affect your organs. So with that in my mind, I was like, you know what? Thank God I have this awareness to get treatment, to get this worked on, to get this recalibrated for myself, because how many people are out there that have been in a car accident or some sort of other trauma to the body like that just seem like a little bit, but it shifts the whole structure. And it also made me think, I remember my sister-in-law saying how years ago they live in Maryland in like the middle of nowhere. So there's lots of deer on the roads. There's lots of wildlife, especially in the winter. And she had hit a deer years ago and had her car repaired, had everything fixed, but it was never right. It was never like it was before the accident. And I was just thinking, that's how we are in a lot of ways. And we can get these massages, we can get these adjustments and stuff, but like even that little bit of impact can shift us just enough to make things different. So keep that in mind with how you're moving through life, and maybe give yourself some grace for that too, because it can affect more than you realize. But anyway, as I returned to myofascial release, she worked on my ankle at some point. Because myofascial release, let me explain. So it's not just like a regular massage. I might go in for a myofascial release treatment and she's like, what's talking to you today? And again, for the most part, it was like, my ankle's not right. Please do something. It's throbbing, or I can feel it messing everything else up. So like, please focus on that. Do what you can to make the rest better. But there's other times that I went in, and because myofascial release deals with the fascia in the body. So if you're not that familiar with fascia, however you want to pronounce it, whenever I say it fascia, I always think of Austin Powers and fascia, that thing. So I don't really call it fascia because I immediately hear that and have to play it that way each time I say it. So if you are not familiar with fascia, if you think of a boneless, skinless chicken breast and that like webby stuff on the outside of it, even though it's boneless, skinless, that webby stuff outside of it, that's your fascia. So we have that all throughout our bodies, and they cover the muscles. So a lot of times, even when I worked on a client's muscle pain, muscular discomfort, it wasn't that I was treating the muscles, it was that I was addressing the fascia. Help release, relax, expand that, and then that gives room and space for the rest of the things to move around like they need to move. So myofascial release helps manipulate that, expand it, maneuver it so that you have space to expand, right? And one of the sessions I went in with her, and I was like, I wish I had recorded this, because when I tell you, like, I feel like I'm supposed to say pause saying this, but it's me, so it doesn't matter. But she had her hands in my mouth and with some gloves, but she was manipulating the muscles in my mouth and like around my sinus cavity, and just like there's so much in here that happens. And like, think, when's the last time you had never mind. I almost said, when's the last time you had a mouth massage? But a professional performing a mouth massage, right? You probably haven't. And it was like, imagine if you were about to go get some sort of dental work done and maybe you had like, I don't know, some tension or something going on from whatever. Imagine you had tension. Maybe you're just anxious about the dental work you're about to have done. And somebody did myofascial release to release all of that before your dental work or after it to help with the recovery. And it was just like, there's so many things that we could be adding to these like regular practices that could benefit them. That feels like another project for another day. But look into myofascial release if you have not already. It's great. And I was like going through some journals around that time. Because again, this is also around this time I'm like, please give me some inspiration for something to talk about because I ain't got it. And I'm not one to look at past journals necessarily because like a lot of times when I'm writing, because you know I'm a big write that shit down person, but it's write the things down that you want, write the things down that you're bringing into your life. So when I do journal or brain dump, it's kind of like I just need to get this out of my head onto paper so it's somewhere, but I don't need to revisit it. And so I was like going through some journals because I was like, I need to be writing some others. I need to brain dump soon. Like I was feeling this need to write some stuff, but I was like, I have all of these like, and I'm sure you do too, because I feel like everybody that I am associated with has a million journals because there's this belief that if you get a new journal, you're about to fix your life. And that's not necessarily the case. But I was going through all of these million journals that I had that were, you know, like a quarter of the way filled out or like a few pages filled out. And I was like, let me just get rid of some of these documents that I don't need. And in one of the journals was an entry from February of 2019. And it was the first myofascial release treatment that I had had. And I wrote down what my experience was and the story that she shared with me, which I have given this advice to other people as well. So I'll reshare it. But when you think of a rabbit, for instance, running through the woods away from its predator, say it's a hawk, and the rabbit gets away, it's hiding in the bush, right? But it is startled and stirred up from this adventure it just went on from saving its own life, that it finally gets to a safe space, right? But it's all like tense and probably stressed, you know, essentially. So the first thing that you see a rabbit or many other animals do after moments like this is they shake it off, right? And I was like, I forgot about that reminder. There's so many of us that walk around through life with things that affect us and things that get us stressed out and things that really cause like a shakeup within our bodies that we don't often enough take time to shake it off, to literally shake off what we've been through. And I know there's a lot of like somatic therapists out there that push for that stuff too. But again, like even dancing, this is why I tell people to dance from time to time. And I have my playlist on Spotify with the Peach. If you are not familiar, it's got a bunch of like scrippa music, you know, the stripper legs. I would say this if you're watching me on YouTube, you can see it. If you're not watching me on YouTube, you already know what stripper legs are though, probably. It's this like they move a certain way. There's a magic and flow to them, right? So anyway, you got to get some stripper leg in your life, in your body to feel more balanced. And like, not saying you need to stripper leg it off after a shakeup, but maybe at least listen to a playlist that might make you want to. All right. But anyway, one of the other things that I had put in that journal entry was, because this was before the podcast. This was before Who You Call in Holistic, right? And one of the things that I had written down in there was like, it was so interesting to learn about myofascial release and how passionate I was about learning all of these different approaches and passionate about being able to teach these different approaches. And I even wrote in there something like, I think I'm going to be known for bridging the two, the material, the spiritual, not even the two. Let's say the energetic and physical. I don't remember what I wrote, and I thought about saving it to read in here, but it's gone now. But I said something along the lines of, I think I'm here to share what it looks like bridging the two. But then, even then, I had scribbled out think, and I said, I know I'm here to bridge the two. And I laughed to myself because, duh, of course I got these reminders then, right? But also I have revisited many times my astrology things to just remember, sometimes I just got to go back and like, is this true? Was this what was said about me in this thing? Is this how I'm supposed to be moving? And my Pisces midheaven, which is your career public image, very much confirmed that again the other day. It was like, you're here to bridge the material and spiritual worlds. And I was like, of course I am. Of course. But of course I got all of these reminders in the middle of my fuck this shit and what am I supposed to talk about, and I'm not inspired. So there we have it. I got those just in time. But I've also been studying, of course, because that's what I do whenever I'm not on here creating. I'm hermiting and reading and all of those things. So one of the books I read recently was, what was it? $100 Million Offers. If you are in the creative space, if you are a practitioner, I highly recommend that. It's interesting, some of the books that I read, because like I don't necessarily push for like, let me just do Black owned everything. I appreciate it and I support it when I see it. But y'all know me. I like good work and I like the message from where it's coming from on the big scale. I don't necessarily attach that message, the positive ones. Let me rephrase that. I don't necessarily always attach that message to the messenger, because that's how things get caught up with the things. Now, when we talk about R. Kelly and some other, whatever, that's different. But Alex Hormozy, I think that's how his name is pronounced, who has scaled millions of dollars more than once, wrote that book. And he's got some other books out there too that I'd like to check out. But look into that, because one of the things that I've shared with a few people is how interesting it is navigating this space as somebody in my industry, as somebody in the spiritual healing, self-development. I don't even want to say self-development, because yes, what I do is self-development, but a lot of what I do is more self-awareness, maybe, because it really is like learning. And I know awareness and development kind of go, but I feel like it's more awareness. But a lot of the work that I do is not, I don't want to say it's new, but you have to remember, like, my pivot came from doing massage. And with massage, a lot of work is, and not just massage, a lot of that industry, the healing industry, the solo independent practitioner industry, is word of mouth, right? A lot of the business I've gotten over the years in my field, even with my pivots, is still word of mouth. I can create, I can put up ads, I can do all the things, but a lot of people aren't going to trust what I have to offer until they've heard it from a friend or a friend of a friend or somebody else that they know and trust. That's just that's how my life is set up. And I get it, because I'm the same way. Like, I kind of want to hear for myself that somebody else had this experience before I check it out. Or I'll go with my gut, like, nope, this is something I absolutely need to check out, because perhaps I'm the first one that other people need to see do it first, right? But anyway, so navigating this space has been interesting because there's not a lot of people that are healers, big spiritualists that you see that are like rich like that. I mean, I know they exist, and I know there's like this, is that allowed? Is that okay? But it's like, where do they get their information? Who do they learn from? How do they learn to do that? And so the teachers, the people I'm finding with the information that I'm like, that's interesting. It's like, I don't want to say it's sad or disappointing. Maybe it's disappointing. It's disappointing that a lot of times I end up finding some of like the marketing messages that I was looking for, or the approaches from like white males, obviously, because that's just they've been doing lovely work in marketing since the beginning of time in America, right? Big pharma, they know marketing, all right? If anybody knows marketing, it is an audacious white man.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
So I just figure I need to learn some more marketing tips from them. But anyway, check out that book if you haven't already. And even some of the content creators, like, and I follow all the genders, all the races, all the whatever. But like some of the people in my line of work, they're not there yet with the marketing and the messaging. And I found that really, really difficult for me too, because when I was just massaging, I didn't need an email list. I didn't need, like if I did have an email to send out, what was I going to say? Like, y'all come get your massages this week. I got a new essential oil to offer this week. Like it felt dumb. But then with the pivot, I was like, I wish I had this email list a long time ago. So there were just things that I had to learn to develop over the years that I didn't need at all with massage. But having that foundation and understanding of a lot of my work is going to be and will always be word of mouth helped me see things on a bigger picture, because now with that information, it's like, okay, now that I know it's word of mouth, like how many other ways can I get people to experience my work so that they can talk about it? And how many other ways do I need to approach my messages, what I'm sharing, all of that, so that more eyes are on it, but also like the eyes that are going to pay me. And so that's just, it's an ongoing process. And anytime that I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, or like, here we go again with like another roadblock or something, I take myself back to square one. I take myself back to studying, like, okay, let me get back to the foundations of the things. Let me get back to the messaging. Let me get back to, what I want. So some of the things that I was like, what else can I get more clear about? Just so I know for my own self. And I am also in the middle of like a rebrand. It makes sense that my haircut went along with that. So you'll be seeing some sprinkles of that throughout, because a piece of me like wants to delete my whole page and start over. But then I'm like, no, there's still a lot of things that you have posted. There's still a lot of messages that people have saved and stuff. You can't do that. So I'm not going to do that. I do kind of want to delete and start up, but I'm not going to do that. But just getting back to the core of what my brand is about, what my messaging is about, what things I need to do moving forward with this space, with the other spaces I take up, right? So when it comes to like getting back to the foundations, getting back to the basics, one of the things that I had this conversation with a friend about was she had difficulty, or she mentioned that she didn't want to dumb down her messaging for her audience because, and she's very intelligent, and she felt a way about dumbing down, and I'm saying dumbing down with some air quotes, but I reminded her what was shared with me years ago when I first started teaching Reiki. And it was very much like, you have to simplify. You have to simplify your messaging in order for it to make sense to people. And I've gotten compliments on how I explain things because it is so simple. But because of that, when you think about simplifying your message, it's going to reach more people. It's going to reach a bigger audience. It's going to reach ears that you didn't realize were even paying attention, because the more simple, the better. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous for some things, but a lot of the things that we overthink and a lot of the things that we forget are the very simple things that we need to do regularly to make sense of what we're here to be, what we're here to do, right? So, I always talk about my nature walks and all of that stuff and routines and stuff like that. It's those I'm like spitting all over the mic. It's those very simple little details that make the big difference in the big picture. And in saying that, so the other thing that I learned back in 2020, because again, this feels like, I don't want to say this feels like a repeat of 2020, this 2024, but remember how I mentioned the whole conspiracy theory thing earlier? I remember seeing a post recently too, and somebody was like, this like weird symptoms, weird like cold symptoms all of a sudden. Doesn't this sound familiar? Like, isn't it election year? And I was like, you're right. So it feels like there's things that are, like coming back up that we already did. And it's like, why are we doing this again? So it was like, okay, if that's what's taking place, if 2024 is like a remix of 2020, what does that look like? What can I do on my end so it's different personally in a lot of ways, but also let me still get some of the things I got from 2020. And I know in 2020, one of the things that I really, really, really learned and embraced and embodied, and I'm sharing this part specifically for some of the women that are listening to this episode, because I had this conversation with somebody else recently about, like, for instance, whenever I have clients, a lot of times they'll say to me, oh, let me just run to the bathroom real quick. And I'm like, you don't have to go real quick. Or why don't you go real slow? Like, I remind them, take your time. Please take your time. You can pee. You can take your time peeing. We're not in a rush. And usually, like, when I start a session, I don't say like, oh, let me cut into that time that she went to pee. Like, let me deduct 3 minutes. No, like, that's not how this works. And maybe it works for some people that way, but no. So there's this like constant rushing, and it's part of our society. It is part of what has been taught to us to produce, to do, to go, to move all the time. And it is not realistic. It is not realistic for anybody's bodies, for anybody's nervous systems, for anybody's anything. We're meant to go, rest, repeat, right? And there's going to be more times that we're on go mode sometimes, and there's going to be more times that we're on rest mode sometimes. And we got to embrace that understanding and know that sometimes it's time to go and sometimes it's time to be still. And 2020 really, 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 really taught me that, because it really helped me embrace that divine feminine energy. And when I say, like, I feel like whenever I would read about divine feminine stuff, it was like this big woo-woo whatever. And it's not. It is, but it's not. It is very much, again, the simple shifts and simple changes. So like me telling this woman to take her time going to pee, she's in this constant state of go mode and rush, and I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. And it's like, if you can just take a moment to shift that little thing, take your time using the bathroom. What else is that going to extend to? What else might you see that you're rushing, doing all the time, that you might need to slow down a bit? And I know for me, I don't know if this is the same for you, but have you had those moments where like you're about to leave the house and like you're rushing to get out for whatever reason? Maybe your friend is like, let's go, whatever, because I've had that too. And you're like trying to grab all the things, and then like you're grabbing keys, you're grabbing whatever else, especially if you're a woman, you're grabbing all the things that you need that probably should have been in a purse, but you've already got a full purse. So now you got the things in your hands. But anyway, you're grabbing all the things and like you're missing things and then they're falling and then it's like, oh my gosh, like now it's a clusterfuck and it's everything's a mess, right? So those instances are moments that I'm like, okay, slow the fuck all the way down. Because and like when I say slow the fuck all the way down, I mean like grinding halt, like very exaggerated slowdown. Like, let me slowly reach for these keys over here. Like complete slowdown for things. And like I said, exaggerated because it's like, all right, the rushing isn't getting me anywhere. This is where the mistakes happen. This is where accidents happen. So slow all the way down. And then once I do that, it's like, okay, now we're good again. Because again, you already know how I feel about time. It's pretend. So in knowing that, slow down. Please slow down. It's very feminine of you to slow down.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
And you don't have to be a woman to slow down. Let me just make that clear too, all right? Because again, we're supposed to embody feminine and masculine. And that goes for any gender because both of those are fluid anyway. And again, like I mentioned, short hair is not feminine or masculine. It has nothing to do with, I mean, hair is a part of it, maybe, but it's much bigger than that. It's about the energy you're putting out and how you're receiving and relaxing and resting. That's more feminine flow. Masculine is the going, the doing, the producing. And we are in such a male-driven patriarchal society that many of us are conditioned to always operate in that mode. And it's not, again, realistic for anybody. And this is how burnout happens. This is how stress gets increased. And it's not beneficial for anybody in the long run to always be going on that mode. So I'm saying this specifically to women, even though I think 99% of y'all are women that listen to me. I think I got like maybe 2 men that listen. Thank you, by the way. But in knowing that information, really, really practice more of that feminine energy that you can embrace. Really embrace that stillness and that receive mode. And like I said, whenever I'm getting flustered and like, what the fuck, I go back to the whole square one thing. Like, I am most efficient, most powerful, and most productive in my feminine flow. And for that, for me, a lot of times it's stillness. Like, I can do a lot by being still. I can accomplish a lot by being still. And I was thinking back to, again, the myofascial release treatment. And one of the things that came to mind whenever I had my last session with her was just this idea of when we think about, hurricanes and tornadoes, I was like, they're both powerful, right? But like, what makes them different from one another? And I was just thinking like how a lot of us need to embrace both of those. So there needs to be like the hurricane vibes are very much like stillness, accumulating your power, accumulating your resources, that kind of thing. And a tornado, when we look at those, because like when we think of hurricanes, we see them growing, we see them building, we see them developing before they start making moves, right? We see that in action. We don't see all the things that take place underneath or what all is happening as it's being built, but we know that something's brewing, right? And when we see tornadoes, we might know an area that they will be. We might know that they're going to happen. We might know that there's conditions for them. But tornadoes just, they kind of strike when they need to. And they move how they need to with the resources and the debris and the fuckery and all the things that they grab along the way, right? So like know when to be a hurricane and know when to be the tornado.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
All right. So there's going to be times for both. There's going to be times for the stillness. There's going to be times for inspired action. That's the tornado, is the inspired action. And you'll know, but you gotta do both. You gotta be still enough, and you gotta know when to move. And you're gonna learn that, because I learned that the more I practice the stillness and the more I practice the let me just sit in the shit from time to time until it's time to move out of it. Right? I had so much other stuff to say, but I figure I have plenty of content for the next one. There were too many glitches with today's recording, and I feel like I need to just pause for now and save the rest for later, because I can go on and on about even more of this feminine stuff and messaging stuff at another time. But there's a lot to unpack there. But if you are having difficulty with your movement, with what to do next, with frustration, practice that stillness. That's what I do. It works all the time. And again, like it's that, even today, for instance, I woke up to Lennox vomiting at 6:30 a.m. And then when I went to go take him out to pee, like we always do every morning, I stepped into a spider web the minute I walked out my door. And it was just like, you know what? It's one of those moments that it's like, let me restart. Let me start the day over. Like, what did I do wrong? Did I get up on the wrong side? And it's like, no, there's those moments, right? You're not going to have a whole day of it per se. But like, again, when those moments take place, I got to slow all the way down as much as I can, and recalibrate to gain the momentum to get going again. So I hope that helps with whatever you got going on today, tomorrow, whenever you are listening to this. And welcome back, me, Shiana. Welcome back. And I will talk to you soon. Be sure to meditate and hydrate. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Who You Callin' Holistic. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. You can find me and all my services on Shiana.com. That's SHEANAH.